Today, we are going to talk about a very interesting model which helps us understand small scale fisheries in the German North Sea. First, can I ask you to tell us a bit about yourself and how you got involved with this modeling project?
Sure. Hi, my name is Karsten Lemon. I am a outside senior researcher now with the Helmholtz Center Herion in Germany. That's a research facility, a large infrastructure research facility just outside of Hamburg. And the last project where I was involved in was called Mussel, Multiple Stressors on North Sea Life. It ran for 3 years, was funded by the German Research Ministry.
Very much. So let's start at the beginning. Uh, why was this model created? And can you tell us about the purpose behind this model?
Um, Now, we do have already advanced models for ecosystems in the North Sea. So we are quite confident modeling kind of algae, zooplankton, not so confident doing that with jellies and fish yet. But we have never before connected those ecosystem models with socio-ecological models of the fisheries. So the purpose is to represent the um, fishers in that very narrow economic sector of small-scale North Sea German fisheries in its environmental contexts. And by doing so, by having that representation, we aim to A, provide the modeling platform as a tool for better and structured dialogue with stakeholders, with fishers, with agencies along the coast. That's also the reason why we do that on a NetLogo platform. Um, and the second reason is, of course, to explore scenarios with the model and also in the dialogue with stakeholders on how the system could evolve given other pressures like the removal of the resource, the closure of areas, the interference with shipping, with offshore wind farming. This sea area that we looked at is one of the most heavily trafficked one in the world.
So, what were the biggest challenges you faced when developing this model?
Um, some of the challenges that we had um, did not have to do so much with the modeling process itself. We spoke to lots of experts on fisheries, so we think we're quite confident that we have a good view of what the agent does and how she or he thinks and decides. We have lots of data available on the North Sea system. Um, Of course, there could always be more data, but I think sufficient for this purpose. We rely on many, I think 20 or so, I listed them all in the model repository, open data sources to describe the environment. And now that's all, it's a lot of work to put all of that together, but it's not a major challenge, I say.
Hmm.
So yeah, I guess that was just it was good. It was not a very difficult thing to do, but of course, what we have now is has become quite complex after 3 years of development.
So, now let's talk about the outcomes of this work. What are the key insights or findings from analyzing this model?
Well, the key purpose that the model was built on was to look at to explore scenarios of um, mostly area closures that occur here in the Wadden Sea. If you look at the map behind me,
Yep.
yeah, that's kind of the coast, and you see all the colored dots. That's where the fishers, well, in that snapshot of the model, were actively fishing. Um, And much of that area that you see now is being fished is reserved offshore for offshore wind farming in the future, so they won't be able to go there. And much of the area that you see close to the coast, so gray is coast, blue is sea, much of that area is national park area where the shrimp fisheries is still exempted from any bans. So they actually fish in a protected area. And it is under discussion in the European Union that in all marine protected areas, like the Wadden Sea area, here the fisheries should be entirely banned or banned at least 30% of the area. And we wanted to look at mitigation strategies that those fishers have to deal with those closures of their traditional fishing grounds. Usually that always means to spend more money. Because if you go somewhere else, you probably go somewhere that's a little bit further away. You spend more time at sea. You spend more diesel. You have to burn more diesel. It gets a little bit more expensive. We have also seen that, of course, fuel prices have been drastically changing in the past, and they make up about 20% of the entire cost. So maybe it's not critical, but it's one of those factors that will make shrimp probably more expensive, and that these fisher women and men have to deal with to balance their cost. The emergent pattern that we observe and that we wanted to observe in the model is, of course, the change of the fished area. Now we have about 200 shrimp fishers and about 100 fishers that go for plaice and sole, so flat fish on the ground. We concentrate here on shrimp, so the near coastal fisheries, and we observe in our current scenario simulations how the pattern of the used fishing area shifts. Of course, if you close it near shore, it will move more offshore. We also look at the economic balance for the fishers in those cases.
So you have archived your model on comsys.net, and I believe sharing your work with the scientific community is a very big step. So, what were some of the challenges in this process? I mean, are there any challenges in the process of archiving your model?
From the beginning of the project, we all had agreed among the project consortium that all the data we were producing, all the models would be open source and open data. Actually, that was very difficult. If you deal with an economically sensitive sector like fisheries, and there are only about 200 boats here, shrimpers, from maybe 100 something different operators. As soon as you have access to economic data and to location data, that is sensitive data. That data per se is not allowed to be published. So I think that was the largest challenge that we had here. So what we did is lots of discussions with people who own the data. But then to come up with the idea that we had to aggregate the data, obtain the statistical properties of the data, and then produce a surrogate data set of the boats that we can use in our model. What helped immensely was that not only the project partners had agreed, but that also I'm a teacher of ecosystem modeling at Leuphana University. I teach ecosystem modeling. I use NetLogo agent-based models with my students. I encourage my students to put their models up on ComSysNet. And I've had a long knowledge of the platform ComSys. That is just my own expertise that I brought in here. So for me, to do this all open source was agreed before, but to put it especially on ComSysNet, that was my own effort. And because I like the platform, I think for environmental models, for me, it's the go-to platform. It's rich in very um, very short, small models that are good for education that I use in my teaching. So even though this is a larger effort and research model, I think it fit well into the ComSys suite of.
So, what's next for this model? Are there any follow-up studies or developments planned?
The project has ended. The funding for the project has ended. But my institute agreed to continue, to fund me or to allow me as part of my uh, institutional funding to continue using this model and applying it. And my personal major goal for maybe version 2 is to make it a real participatory model. So I'm now looking, and there's already a feature branch on the repository, looking into a HubNet activity where we could actually have, a part of the 200 boats or single ones, I don't know yet, operated, or the decisions would be made by a participant in the room or in an online community.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your work and insights with us today.
Well, thank you for inquiring and your interest about our model.